Good morning, everyone. Just to start to this floral demonstration, I wanted to first sort of show everybody what I use for greens around my yard and so forth. So we're going to start in the front of my yard. And if you want to go to this rosemary bush right here, a lot of times, and I might use some today, I haven't quite decided, but I'll cut this off and use those in floral arrangements. Sometimes I'll cut these spears from these are yucca plants. But this tree right here that's bare and got the little red buds up on the top, that's a smoke tree. And it's beautiful when it's in bloom. It looks like the blossoms look like puffs of smoke. And I'll use those when they're in bloom, probably in June or July. And then a lot of times in the wintertime, if I use evergreens or whatever, I'll use some of these junipers and these other pines here. And then I love the color of this, I'm forgetting the name right now. But this beautiful green color is very nice in there. But I try, if I make an arrangement for the onaijin, I can't really use anything with thorns in it or anything that's poisonous. And the sap that comes from this euphorbia, is what it's called, it's toxic. I don't know that it's necessarily poisonous, but I don't use it in the onaijin flowers. I'd sure love to because of the color and stuff. We'll move through to inside the yard here, and there's some more greens that I'll show you inside. We're in my front yard now, and I've got 4 different types of bamboo here that we've planted over the years. This one has this bark that's kind of brown with a little variation of green in it and stuff. But I'll use these a lot of times. The leaves, I'll cut off like big, long branches and use those as part of my greens. There's a black bamboo back there in the corner, which it's only the stalk. I mean, the leaves aren't black, it's the stalk itself, but I'll use that sometimes too. And we'll notice in the backyard there's some more bamboo back there, but once it's cut, because the city came through and cut down the tops of it because it's in the wires, it grows differently. It grows more bushy, and we'll point that out in the back. And I sometimes will use rhododendrons as well, especially like when they're in bloom, of course, but even now I love the form of the bud right there. And over here, you'll probably notice as we're going through my yard, it's not maintained very well. I'm not a master gardener and I'm not a master floral arranger. I usually let things go and then I weed in a month or so or whatever. But what I want to show you is I also use what's called zebra grass, and there's a big plant of it right here. It's dead right now. Like I said, I'll have to cut this down. There's new shoots coming up already. I'll sometimes even use some of this ivy here in the arrangements. So, and now we'll move to the backyard. All right, and now we're in my backyard, and I just wanted to point out a few more things. There's a couple of rhodies. There's one here, and there's more up the walkway. And then if we spin around over here, I've got another type of bamboo. This, I'll use this a lot too. It's very nice. I mean, right now this is an old leaf. There should be some new shoots coming out. I've got some more over there that we can look at. Also, my maples are starting to bud out, and I trimmed them back a lot last year, but I may pull off a few more of these once they're in bloom And there's also 2 maples in the lot at the temple that I use often to use for greens. Back here we can see the bamboo in the back here, and this is what I was talking about. See up there at the top where it got cut off, it's in big clumps now. That's the way it doesn't grow out in branches, it's clumping, so which is kind of nice to use that as well. I think that's all. I do have another rosemary back here that I use, but that's okay. And like this maple over here, I noticed when I was walking through here this morning, I'll probably cut this off at some point because it's starting to encroach the path where you walk. So that I'll use. I can't use any of the hawthorn. It's got thorns on it. So that I might use like in a floral an arrangement in the house, but not for the onaijin. I think that there's also Dusty Miller back here that I use occasionally. It's this whitish gray plant here. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the greens that I use around here. I just wanted to say one more thing. I also have gotten forsythia and many other blossoms off a snowball tree from my neighbors across the way. Their neighbors have been very gracious to offer flowers and stuff or branches that I can use. So, and that's it for the greens that I use from my yard. So most of the time I never have to buy any greens for the temple. Okay, so now we're going to I'm going to take Sensei down to McKinley Park, and we're going to walk the park, and I'll kind of, I can't really cut any greens from that park, but I get a lot of my inspiration from that park in arrangements and just looking at what's in bloom, and then see if I can find it somewhere else where I can actually pick some of it. So we're off to the park. Yeah, if I leave from my house and walk to the park, through the park and back, it's about a 3-mile walk. Takes about an hour. So just for the sake of time, I just thought we'll drive there. And yeah, see all these trees that are just budding out, like those little hanging blossoms. I love walking to this park because each time I walk, there's something new. I mean, a new tree has blossomed out or leafed out, so. And there's a tulip magnolia coming up right here at this house. That tree right there. We're here at the park, McKinley Park. So I would never use any of these, but or cut them to use them, and I'm not sure what it is. I think it might be a form of salvia, but I'm not sure. But these little blue flowers are pretty when they come out. Just a quick side note, this is totally off the flower thing, but see this knot in the tree here? This is actually where I found one of the monkey shines glass objects that had placed 2 years ago. I found it in there. And people in Tacoma will know what monkey shines is. If they don't, look it up, it's kind of fun. This pond had a pair of ducks in it the last time I was down here, which was like oh yeah, there they are. And there's a gentleman that takes care of this park on a volunteer basis, but he's told me that they return every year. And they come like winter time, and they'll stay in this pond until sometime during the summer, and then they'll take off. I've just found it very inspirational, just to, well, not necessarily just inspirational, but during COVID, you know, and we haven't been able to do much or whatever, and I've started walking more often, and like I'll walk through this park, and it's just relaxing, and it gets me out of the house. And all these little things that are built up around here, they're all done by this gentleman that volunteers all his time in this park. He's probably here every day. J-Man Patnoid is his name. He just comes in every time and every day and takes care, like he's the one that piled all these pieces of branches along the path, cleans the path up. He has a volunteer work party that comes in the third Saturday of every month, just to work on different things. Like they'll pull all the ivy away from the trees so it's not going up the trees and killing the trees, and just different maintenance things in the park. That's another thing I didn't point out in my yard. I'll also use fern fronds in arrangements from my yard. Let's see, even like this right here, I mean, that could be used in a flower arrangement. I mean, I've found things like this. I'm going to take this with me. I might use it today. But on my walk down here, last month I think it was, I found a branch similar to this, still had pine cones on it. It was after a big windstorm that we had. And I just picked it up, took it home, and I've used it since. And then another thing, Fred and I were recently at Illahee State Park in Bremerton, East Bremerton, and walking on the beach, and I found another branch structure there that I have at home. I haven't used it yet, but similar to I will at some point, but it's won't necessarily be on the onaijin because it's a large branch formation that really takes a substantial vase to work it into. And I have one of those that's donated to me by a previous member when she passed, Kiku Marita. Her daughter Renee Moriguchi asked me to come by the house, and she donated these beautiful ikebana bowls and things to me. So I've been very fortunate in that way too. I mean, Fred and I both have been very fortunate in the fact that we've been coming to the temple for like 20 years or more. And when we first started coming, along with sukiyaki, some of the women did ikebana displays. So we were part of that. I mean, we could see that, you know, before, you know, some of the women that were doing it just got too old and didn't do it anymore. Probably less than 2 weeks ago, these were just little buds that started to bud out, and now they're full on leaves. So this happens to me often. Usually I'm by myself when I'm walking, but I just sort of take it all in. There's some blossoms coming. This is probably similar to what I'm going to use today in the flower arrangement that I do later. I'm going to use some cherry or plum blossoms from my from a relative's yard, and also some flowering quince. So, and then I've got one of our temple members is also donating. She's going to bring in some rhododendrons, pink and red, that I may use today. And what you'll notice when I do this arrangement, I'm going to have a lot of greens and stuff in the temple, and I won't use them all, but I like to have options, you know, when I'm putting these together. So there'll be several different types of greens, but nothing ever goes to waste. Even with the flower arrangement from last week, I went in yesterday and I took it down, but there's flowers that are still good from it that I saved, and if I can use them today in the arrangement, I will. Sometimes it's not the right color scheme or whatever, and I'll make an arrangement and put it down in the Reverend Pratt room, or I'll give it to Reverend Koyama and Cindy, Reverend Cindy, and or make one, take it home and make one at home. I try not to waste too much, but there always seems to be a bucket of greens on my back deck that it never seems to go away because I keep adding to it. I've tried to find, this is Madrona here. You can tell by the red bark. Here, and I would never cut anything from here, but I have, when we've been out in other places, or a friend that has some, it makes a really nice arrangement too, or adds to an arrangement. Like I said, it just, I get rejuvenated and I relax walking through here. If you can do the same thing, do the two at the same time. But especially on a day like today, it's beautiful. Hello. Okay, folks, we're back here at the temple. I've collected all of the things that I want to use today. I've got lots of greens, and you'll notice that there's plenty here, probably more than enough. I could do two arrangements, but I like to have options. So I've got forsythia here from my neighbor's yard, some really pretty rhododendrons, pink rhododendrons with a white center. Some greens here, some bamboo, some fern fronds. This is actually lilac that's coming into bloom. And there's some leaves out the dracaena. And then over here, I don't even know what this bush is, but it's a large bush, and it opens up and it gets these white flowers on it that haven't bloomed yet, but it makes nice for green. And then this is some, I believe they're plum blossoms. And I did bring in, I talked earlier today that I wanted to use flowering quince. Well, as I was cutting it today, I realized it has thorns on it. So I won't be using that in flower arrangement for the onaijin. I'll take it home and use it for something else. And then my dear friend, June Willard, brought in these red rhodies as well. And this type of evergreen that's just gorgeous. And then some japonica, there's another name for it, another name. But anyways, these are things I brought in to actually do the arrangement. And like I said, I came down yesterday. I got the flower vase that I'm going to use, this one right here, filled with water with food in it already. And then there are several ways I do these arrangements. I've got an oasis here soaking as well, so it's ready to go. I sometimes put the oasis in there, and then I will use this grate that I duplicated after the one that was here for many years fell apart, just to put inside the vase, like so. So it's easier to put the stems in. Sometimes I will take all of the flowers and I'll start wrapping them with wires. I'll start with my tallest green ones. But today I'm going to try and use this with an oasis in it. And the only thing that would determine whether I use it or not, if some of the stems that I'm going to put through this wire are too fat. But I can cut down the ends a little bit on, I think the fattest thing are these guys, these plum blossoms, but I think I can cut that down enough to stick it through there. So I'm going to go ahead and use the oasis and then this grate on it. So I usually start with my tallest green or tallest item that's going to go in the back, the very back. And I think today I will probably use bamboo. And with the bamboo, I try and cut it in water because it tends to dry out pretty fast. I try and get some of the shape of the greens in the back. However, I'm going to put them in. I'm not done with the greens, but I want to start adding some of the other things that are going to be in this arrangement. And one thing I was taught by, I did take some ikebana classes about 3-4 years ago. I was gifted with some classes with Sensei Yasuko Akamine in Renton. And one thing she taught me is that all flowers have a face. And when you're doing an arrangement, you want their faces to be shining or be front and center. You don't want another flower to cover it up or another face to cover it up. So, and I will admit that in some of my arrangements, I do too much and some faces may get covered, but I try and keep that in mind all the time, that, you know, everything has, I guess everybody has a place. Everything has a place in nature. Sort of the basic structure, it'll kind of fan out at the top and then come down in like this is what I'm going for. I mean, so, and sometimes I have to pull things out and start over again. And these that go in on either side, I don't want them to be even. See, this one's going out to about here and this one's down here. So you've got different levels. I want to get some yellow in there. And since I can attest to this, if I was doing this normally, we would have NPR blaring in the background. I usually have music on, listen to KNKX, which is a nice jazz station, mostly. Lots of news too, but it... And at this point, I'll keep adding greens, more greens. I mean, people, you can have open spaces, but for me, a lot of times, I like this to sort of be a solid green, not solid necessarily, but pretty thick so you can't see through it. See, even like this one, I guess there's faces all over it, from either angle, either way. But I think this way is a little bit better. You can see more of the blossoms. Or they appear to be looking at us. And something I just thought about too, I mean, with all this white, these white blossoms, if I was doing a funeral arrangement, this time of year, I could get this and do a lot of the arrangement with these flowers, and it would be very nice. I guess I'm saying that because I'm always trying to think of different seasons to do the arrangement and what's in bloom. Oh, and I probably should have said something in the beginning. Usually the height of your arrangement, like this is the size of the vase, so you can go up, what is it, 2 more times from that. So like from here to there, and that should be about the top of your arrangement. But mine always seem to be a bit taller. It just happens, or I like them better that way. I'm still not sure about this. It's with the more greens I put in there, it appears like it's coming forward a little bit, but I'm still not happy. It just looks like it's leaning back a little bit far. And I've also been told that when doing the flower arrangement, they almost should be slightly bowing forward, kind of thing. So I don't know if I dreamt that one up or Sensei Kakehara told me that or whatever, but I like the thought anyways. And there comes a point where you have to stop, but I always go further. I've never learned the adage that less is more. I also try and do odd numbers. Like right now, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 reds or pinks in here. This is actually 2 right here, so there's 5, but it looks like it's only 4. So, I mean, that's another thing I try and do is do odd numbers, even when it comes to the color spacing. I think even like the greens, they might be, I was just cutting some of them off because they were laying on top of this other green here, and it's almost like they were fighting for space, fighting one another for space. So just to open it up a little bit and give each flower, each stem their glory, basically. And not fighting other colors behind it so I can see what I'm looking at. because this sun in the window and just different light reflections were just... Now I'm at that point where it's like, do I edit or do I add? I think I might be done. Famous last words, right? I think that's the other shape that I needed, I wanted, and didn't realize it till just now. Yeah, I think what I'll do, I've got 3 ferns right now. I'm going to do 2 more, so I'll have 5. One on this spot right about there and another one shorter here. And I think that might be a finished product. I have to stop someplace. I think this is it.